I don't know if you guys can see my video. Can you see it? Can
Yes.
you guys see?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
All right, so I want to introduce myself. I'm Tony Loiza. I'll let Keishan actually start the meeting off, but I wanted to at least say hi to everybody. Happy Thursday.
Yep. So thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar, Building Your Industry 4.0 Roadmap. This is the third webinar that we are conducting as part of the manufacturing series. We have with us, as you know, you've seen Tony Loiza. He's Vice President of Business Development and Sales with Winjit. And on the panel, we also have Chris Clifford joining us. He is Vice President of Implementation. He comes with both of them come bearing rich experience in the IoT domain particularly. I'll request everyone to be on mute during the presentation, and if any questions pop up, please feel free to type it in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, we have a dedicated Q&A session. Will be an open forum for anyone to speak or communicate or deep dive into any specific doubts that one may have. Tony, over to you.
All right, perfect. Oops. All right, guys. All right, so thank you for joining us for our Industry 4.0 Roadmap webinar. We are going to focus today on manufacturing as the context for Industry 4.0. Obviously, it has a lot of different applications in the markets and for different verticals, but we will be using, again, manufacturing as the backdrop. We really tried to think about what are the areas that matter most when we are out there implementing different solutions and we tried to kind of collapse them down into takeaways that you could use when evaluating how you want to move forward with Industry 4.0. We really did try to stay as neutral, if you want to call it, in this approach. And so we hope that the information that we share with you is going to be useful. We are a global company. We are implementing Industry 4.0 solutions across the globe. So we really do get to see a variety of approaches. But in the same way, we see a lot of overlaps in terms of how this always comes together in similar ways. And that's what we try to share with you today. And so that's what we'll get into right now. So as far as an agenda, we've got a lot to cover. So I'm going to try to keep a good pace so we have plenty of time for Q&A. First, we just want to introduce what is the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence as far as we're talking about it today, because these are our broad terms. What is the evolution of IoT and AI as we've seen it in the manufacturing environment? What are the top trending applications that we see for IoT and AI as well? That's another one. What is the foundation that we believe that you should kind of start with in terms of the first steps you might want to take? How do you evaluate an IoT or AI partner with some at least general criteria? What does Winjit offer, at least as an option? This is not about Winjit today, but we do want to let you know what we're doing as an option to consider. And that will include a journey that we take customers on, what's called the proof of implementation, that we'll share with you. And then, of course, we'll open it up to Q&A. I'm going to try to get through this in about 25 minutes so that we have plenty of time for the interactive portion of this, which I think is really the most important part of it as well. So if we start with the introduction here of what are these concepts, Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. So if we look at Internet of Things, the original idea of it was to interconnect computing devices or smart devices that would talk to each other across the internet, of course. Now, in a modern capacity, that application has then expanded to not only smart devices, but to unifying all systems, machines, devices, and even applications across, right, a business so that they're all brought together for a unified data set. That's really how this has evolved. It's gone from just the devices that individually are talking to each other to bringing together your entire business, if you will, which includes, again, much more than smart devices, the systems of machines and applications. When we look at artificial intelligence, that also started with an original idea of using computer systems, programming them to perform human tasks, right, more efficiently. A lot of times this is part of that digital transformation or digital automation that a lot of manufacturers have started with. But in a modern capacity, that has now transformed into automatically learning and improving your manufacturing processes without any programming required, where originally that was required, and giving you real-time analysis, not just visibility, but analysis of the trends and variables that are occurring across your business based off of the now unified data that you have. And these of course work together. You have to first unify your data in order to understand it and understand the variables and trends within it. But this hopefully gives you a baseline of what we'll be talking about today. Now, if we look at IoT and AI in terms of how it's growing, its adoption it's really interesting to watch this. Continues to grow across verticals globally. So what is really, I think, important to realize is this is only moving in the direction of adoption. This is both IoT and AI are transformative technologies that almost every industry and vertical is validating as necessary to remain competitive and, of course, to continue to grow as a business. And I think that's important because you should seriously be looking at IoT and AI as part of a very necessary part of your infrastructure moving forward. Now, if we look at the evolution and how it's kind of been introduced into manufacturing, we believe that this kind of will capture it for you. In the past, you've made certain investments as a manufacturer around process modifications, certifications, and some initial systems to move you ideally out of an Excel, let's say, or Word or manual even framework. You may have then made some early stage digital automation investments around mobility, robotics, motion control, et cetera. All of these were very important and necessary investments, especially with, without IoT and AI having been matured. But there's certain very specific problems that still are existing even with those investments. First, we're noticing that despite the automation, you still have silos of your business. You've improved certain lines, certain parts of your business, but they're still operating independent of each other. That also creates disparate data. It creates the challenge that data is not available to you real time. You still are having to pull that out and put it into Excel and other formats to understand the macros and how that comes into, all that comes into effect. And lastly, you really don't have the insight into patterns. And really it's all about the patterns that let you make better business decisions. So this is really where Industry 4.0 comes in. It's all about unifying finally these different silos, connecting all these different systems that you've invested into over time, not just ERP, but quality or warehousing, whatever it may be, digitally transforming your manual processes. We work with some of the largest manufacturers out there that are still dependent on a lot of manual input. Industry 4.0 is also empowering your workforce, which is of course at the core of your business, with better tools and data and reports so they can be more effective while simultaneously limiting their human risks. And so through systems. And all of this is really meant to make better, faster, more targeted business decisions, which were, again, not available even with the automation and other investments you made in the past. And as part of that evolution, there's definitely a move right now. I'm sure you're seeing it with, again, other investments you made in your business towards platform-based solutions in order to unify that data and get the analytics that you need. And if we use manufacturing, again, as a template here, you've got a number of parts of your business. You've got your core systems, as we're going to call it today, you know, for around your ERP, MES, and other areas that are capturing, again, very, very important parts of data within your business. You've got key departments. Manufacturing is not just the plant floor. You've got sales, you've got quality, you've got warehousing, you've got logistics, right? So you've got all these different departments as well, and processes out there. You've got a whole range, of course, of machines and sensors that you've put in place over the years. And then you've got your customers and your partners that you work with and interface with every day. Ultimately, a platform-based solution should be bringing together all of these different areas of your business and unifying them on a single Internet of Things platform. And that's the trend that we're seeing right now, because that's only when you've done that can you finally get the artificial intelligence and again, the analytics, the insight into the different patterns by having all that data in one central place, not replacing these. We're seeing these systems are not being replaced, but rather there's a pull and push mechanism to the data from all these areas. Now, if we look at how that evolution and how that kind of that platform based approach is being shown in terms of applications, if you want to call it, there's 4 specific, I think, key applications that we're seeing, again, across the globe, across manufacturers, independent of whether they're medical device or aerospace or any other area. So workforce productivity is a really, really big need. Remote systems and data visibility, especially real time, is a key ask. Right now with COVID, this has kind of spiked significantly in terms of, the visibility, especially from a remote perspective. Continuous operations and profitability is always a huge one, just because manufacturing does run with very lean types of margins many times, and improved quality and yield, which again have multiple impacts on both costs, revenue, profitability, and just your ability to serve your customer more effectively. Now, if we dive deeper into each one of these from a workforce productivity, we're just going to share with you a couple of quick examples. You know, you should be able to, with IoT and AI, start to actually see the production by operator of everybody from anywhere. You should not only be able to see what they've produced, but is it on track to their daily production requirements? And then, of course, you can weave in quality and other components as well, in addition to skill matrices and things like that. But you should be able to see that very clearly without any question, and should be able to see that remotely, especially in situations like COVID. Also, you know, from a workforce productivity, you should be able to start to leverage different things, including mobility, people's smartphones, for example, that are on them most of the time, to see, are they at their station? How often are they at that station? And even do things that like industrial distancing under COVID, where you can combine the two. You can see their productivity, you can see their attendance there and their time at the machine, but make sure they're doing that safely. That's another, these are kind of combinations of ideas that you can bring together now with IoT and AI. From a remote systems data visibility, again, from a real-time perspective, you should be able to start to move the necessary components of your in-house data, things that are on your on-prem server, into the cloud as necessary in order for you to make decisions remotely, in order to also share them with other locations should you have them. Or if you know, we're seeing more and more manufacturers being part of a conglomerate environment, doing that as well with your larger team. As part of that, you should be able to also be able to extend this into a mobile capacity at times, give your customer, as an example, real-time visibility into their orders. You should be able to build better trust and a foundation for increased business through that visibility. These are very real and differentiated offerings that you can provide as a manufacturer through IoT and AI that just weren't possible before. When we talk about continued operations and profitability, You know, you may have the ability to, again, monitor, you know, full ranges of your production, whether it be from just your actual to planned energy consumption. You can do that at a high level, as you see here, comparing two different plants. You can drill down actually into a machine-based level, so you can see if a specific machine is out of range or whatever, and go from there. Again, along operations as well and profitability, you should be getting proactive alerts. You should be triggered to make a change in your environment real time when, let's say, a specific part is going outside of tolerance, or when you're behind in a production schedule, things like that. All these things are new capabilities that were not possible except for IoT and AI. From a quality perspective, there's, you know, we'll show you two different versions of where you can use computer vision and other types of similar technologies to actually locate quality issues that the human eye would typically not be able to do, or would take much longer time to do in a QA setting. You could do it on the floor. You know, and there's times where, again, with using even the most basic cameras off the shelf, super cheap cameras, you add an AI, for example, software to that, and suddenly you take a dumb camera, make it smart, and it's able to catch certain quality issues that would not have been possible without taking it into a QA lab. You can catch that actually on the floor. So what is the foundation you need to get started? There's a lot of ideas. We could, I mean, talk for hours about the different ways that this comes to fruition, but there should be certain foundations. So we're going to start with the false assumptions. We talk to so many customers around the world that there are some very real things that we believe hold back companies from starting with IoT and AI. And we wanted to get those out of the way for you, because if you are dealing with these, or you're using these incorrectly, you could be holding yourself back in many ways, again, regardless of who you go with, Widget or anybody. First, you don't need a super robust IT infrastructure and team. We're going to go into it later, but this should be the requirement of your partner. You need a basic IT infrastructure. Yes, you need to have access, you know, to certain servers, etc. But you don't need the latest and greatest IT team. You need to be focused on your core competency as a business. You don't need an expensive investment up front. You don't need, ROI should not be distant. You should be able to make incremental and initial investments and see a pretty quick ROI. That is definitely possible. You should expect that. You do not need some formal team built around operational excellence or something like that. If you happen to be a large company and you happen to have these departments, great. We work with companies like that, but you don't, it's not a requirement, because your partner should be stepping in to do that. You should not have a forced move to a cloud. The cloud is an important tool. It should be used when necessary, but it should not be an absolute requirement. And many times people feel that that is. Full plant automation is not required. In other words, automation, should you have invested in it already, is great, and it will make, I think, IoT and AI enhanced. But you can definitely and should expect that IoT and AI should fill in the gaps should you not have certain automation in certain areas. ERP and major systems, again, very, very important, very helpful, but not an absolute requirement. We work with customers today that have not made that ERP investment, or at least investments in other systems, and IoT and AI can kind of fill in the gaps, and you kind of leapfrog to the end with IoT and AI, and you don't need to make both investments, is my point. You don't need extensive programming. You don't need to create a data lake of information ahead of time for an IoT or AI partner to use. That's part of what they should be doing. You should not be taking a product approach. You should be taking a solution one. You already have enough software. You have enough machines. You have enough sensors. Right now, when you talk about IoT and AI, you should be focused on how that comes together as a solution. You're going to hear this as a repetitive theme for us. Get away from products. You have enough products. You don't need more products. This is not just for your modern systems. You have already spent time and investing in other systems that have now become somewhat legacy, those should be leveraged in addition to modern systems. There should never be a segmentation there. You don't need emerging tech expertise. Again, you can't wait to become an expert in AI and IoT in order to move forward. You should not have that internally. That should be something your partner does so you can stay focused on being an expert in your field. Data security should not be compromised. This should be par for the course, that it is secured. Regulatory revalidation should not happen. Again, this is something when you're talking to an experienced vendor, should be very easily done. There are ways to do this. Sensors and smart devices, hardware purchases are not mandatory. Again, they can bring value without question. If you can do it and you want to do it, that's possible. Your partner should be helping you make those decisions, but it's not a mandatory piece. And this is not just for the plant floor. Way too often we see that that's where the focus is, and it shouldn't be. So all of these are areas that we wanted to highlight. If they're holding you back, they shouldn't be. You should move forward with an investment in IoT and AI because it's happening already in the market. You need to stay competitive by making some sort of investment in it as well, regardless of the vendor you choose. Now, what are the fundamentals for success? What's going to be kind of cool about this is that you're going to see it's for your purposes as a company. It's not going to it's not a focus on technology. It's actually a focus on other areas. One, you need a culture for change. Ironically, this is one of the biggest areas that we see in successful implementations of IoT and AI. You need very defined challenges, goals, and impacts. You want these so that you know where to target that solution properly. Again, you're not buying another product. You're bringing together your company more effectively to actually address certain challenges that you're having today, goals that you want to aspire to, right? And have real impacts through those solutions. You want to have a very clear alignment. I mean, this is a basic thing, but it's a reminder that you have a corporate vision. You've got customer expectations. You've got a market that's delivering many of these services to these customers. Do you have those aligned and integrated into those IoT and AI investments? Management must start with that top-down mandate so that everybody is bought into this. Everybody's making this a priority. You need a modular roadmap. This should not be boiling the ocean approach. This should be very incremental so that you are seeing both the ability to roll this out quickly without it overwhelming your business, and you're getting a very quick ROI off of this. Implementation owners are very important. You need somebody that owns this, not to do the work. Your partner should be doing the work, but that is bringing everybody together. You need interdepartmental coordination. Again, IoT AI is a business investment. This is one of the investments you're going to be making that is impacting your entire business, not just the plant floor or a specific department, like a lot of the other products that you've invested into. And lastly, you need, or two more, consistent communication. We see a lot of customers start out really strong and then frankly kind of get lost in their day-to-day business. And then these implementations start to suffer. And lastly, again, solution versus product implementation. You hear me talk about this over and over because it's so important. Now, if that's what you need to do as a company. Now let's shift to what your partner needs to do. Choosing that right partner for you. And again, we're using the term partner, not vendor, because this is not a product anymore. This is someone that should be aligned with all of those things that we just talked about. So in that digital transformation, that next level of that digital transformation and that investment, you need interoperability. You need someone who is fluid. When we talk about partner interoperability, someone who is fluid, they are not a hammer looking for a nail. They're somebody that is molded to your specific business, your specific evolution as a company, your specific needs. That's very, very critical. That's what we mean by interoperability here. End-to-end solution, that partner should be bringing to you not just the software, which you need, not just in the platform, but the implementation piece. Only then, by combining both a software platform and the implementation piece together in a partner, can they give you an actual solution. Otherwise, they're just giving you more software that you're now having to do yourself. And we see this all the time with ERPs, where people buy something and then they don't even get to use it properly. And lastly, unified departments. You need a partner that's bringing together all of the different business units so that your business is operating more effectively. Just like any other team, if you were a coach on a team, you wouldn't want just one player to get better. You'd want the team to come together more effectively. And the same thing should be happening with IoT and AI. Now, when we're talking about choosing the right platform as it relates to the partner, because they go hand in hand, there are some very specific things. We believe that ideally, your partner should be bringing together the different platforms for you so that you're able to grow with that partner ideally and not have to jump ship or have to re-explain your business to yet a new company. And as part of that platform, it should definitely allow you to scale, not only within your current plant, let's say, but also across plants. You should be able to take the same model that becomes effective in one area, in one plant, and have it across, any other locations that you may have. And of course, it should be scalable in terms of devices, users, and data as well. So it's both from a business scalability, but also an infrastructure scalability. It should be, that platform should be fully agnostic. Legacy modern devices and systems should be able to be brought together. There should never be a separation there because they all have value, they all have data, they all have an impact on your business. And lastly, you need an open API architecture, because what you're going to find with IoT and AI is you're not going to be focused just on your internal systems, but actually leveraging all the different systems around you, including customers and partners. And the better you're integrated, the more open that platform is to bring in all that data, the more effective your services are going to be, the more effective the experience that you're going to give to your customers is going to be as a result. Now, if we look at Widget as an option, we will just show you kind of our vision quickly here so that you understand how we're approaching this should you want to look at us as an option. The first thing to know about Widget is we're all about driving business growth. I've been here in Silicon Valley for 20 years. I see too many companies in tech focus on the technology. Technology is a means to an end. That's it. So we focus on driving business growth with technology, again, being a path to there. And so if we dive deeper into that, we had a very specific vision for IoT and AI, and I'm proud to say we can delineate that vision very clearly. First, we believe in pre-integrated stackable platforms. We want to be a partner that you can grow with. Start with the unification of all your machines, systems, devices, bring those into a unified platform, and then do the AI component to it and add any sort of quality components as well through computer vision. We wanted to be a single partner that could offer that. We wanted you to leverage all your previous investments, including legacy, including your systems, tools, and processes like Lean, Six Sigma, because they all are important to you. You've made that investment for a reason. We wanted you allow you the freedom and openness to continue to evolve. Go out there and choose the best systems, the best hardware, the best anything that you believe are going to help you get to that next level, never being restricted by us as a vendor and a partner. We believe that enhancing your current resources in terms of people is absolutely critical. It is your greatest investment. They still are your greatest resource, and we want to give them the best version to impact your business, but also be limiting their human risk. We wanted to give you the deployment. Again, we talked about to not have to be pushed to the cloud, but only go to the cloud when necessary. That's going to also help you not only with certain security issues, but also with more importantly, data transfer costs and things like that, as well as have the option to use edge-based technology when needed. We wanted to give you that single partner that, again, offers the software plus services, implementation services, and training so that you can ultimately have an end-to-end solution that mirrors your business challenges and goals and gives you that ROI that we think is so critical in a modular rollout and seeing a return on each of these investments. Now, we also believe as part of our of our approach to implementations that we should be impacting your entire business. If you look at a manufacturing business, and this is true for any vertical, you really actually have many, many departments that come together to make your business successful. You've got your front end order entry components. You've got your marketing and sales that should be improved as well. So like, for example, order entry should be able to process your orders more quickly. You should be able to be more accurate in your quoting, be more actually effective in lowering costs when necessary because you have better insight into the back end, like materials and things like that. Marketing and sales, you should have the ability to see different trends, different improvements that you're making so that you can actually use that to go out and capture more customers or improve your current customers' orders and expand upon your current customers. Operations, of course, should be improved from all the different OEE and typical areas that are brought to the table. Quality, again, should be par for the course. IT and OT systems should be finally brought together. We talked about all these disparate and siloed systems. They should finally be unified through IoT and AI. Finance should not only be looking at the regular numbers in terms of profitability, right, and things like that, and cost, but actually should be able to see revenue leakage. Where are the bottlenecks in the company that are costing us the most? Where are the downtime issues with the most expensive parts that are actually impacting us the most? That's a different view from a finance perspective that you can finally have with IoT and AI. Critical projects should be able to be addressed on the fly with IoT and AI, like we just showed in terms of COVID with industrial distancing, things like that. And management should be empowered to ultimately support all of these different departments more effectively. And then again, these should all be done in a modular way so that we have customers, believe it or not, as a manufacturer, they'll start on the finance side sometimes. Then maybe they'll switch over to operations. And then maybe they go to IT, OT. Each of these, sometimes that's because some will be able to be rolled out quicker. They can see a faster ROI, get an early win, and then invest beyond that. But that modular approach is a really big part of how we implement for our customers so they can absorb this, see the impact, and then move forward more confidently. And then as far as Widget, also we offer something very unique, which is called our proof of implementation journey. So we are not doing a proof of concept because we believe that's kind of a false positive to many customers. Proof of concepts are normally done in a very controlled environment. We, in fact, implement the proposed solution within your production environment. And the way that looks to you is it's a 4-step engagement model. We come in, understand your challenges and goals. We will, of course, do an initial ROI analysis to prioritize those. And then we're going to implement certain subsets of those use cases to basically demonstrate how we can actually do this in your production environment. We'll prove that implementation out. And only by doing that, then will you give us a PO to then finish and continue that on in a production implementation environment. But if we have the right type of communication, the right interaction, the right coordination with your teams, we can actually begin that business transformation journey within 30 days. We can start that production implementation within 30 days to where you're starting to see an impact that quickly. It's incredibly powerful. And of course, for any customer, we have some general next steps. We want to, again, have you reach out to us if you're interested in looking at an option through us, along with the many options that you have. Let us take you through that initial qualification process where you'll get to experience how we operate as a partner. We can understand those goals and challenges, identify that ROI that you can use anywhere with any partner. But ideally, we can give you that free proof of implementation options. So you can see this there. And if that works out, then of course we can do full scale implementation. And if not, then it's on our dime. But I just wanted to kind of open it up to QA. Q&A. I hope this was helpful. And this was the core of what we wanted to share with you. Thank you. Keisha, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I think that was really powerful, in terms of what IoT and AI as a technology can do. This was targeted for a manufacturing environment, but it can have similar impacts, I believe, in any other sector. So we also have Chris with us. Chris, what do you think, because now you see the trend that, many companies have started to outsource that IT teams. So how much of a hurdle it is for an IoT or an AI implementation in those companies?
So earlier that's a very valid question, Kishan. Earlier, this was a major aspect for any of the company because it was dependent on what you have and then based on that, what you can do. But with the overall trend, what is happening within the IoT space, and like you rightly said, it's not just the manufacturing as a industry vertical, but any industry vertical, if you think about it, is like evolving in such a way that whatever you have currently within the means of that, how you can leverage IoT as a technology, because technology has advanced in such a massive scale wherein you can leverage any of the equipments, data sets, infrastructure, legacy systems, newer systems that you have connected directly via IoT, and extract. It becomes sort of a more than just a data lake or a data warehouse. So initially the people used to feel that legacy systems and we need to rewrite something on top of that before we start integrating it with newer system. But that things have now changed. Everything is like works on middleware at this point of time, and IoT bridges the gap between the two.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to you. Before that, I want to ask Tony on the business front, because he has extensively worked over 10 years in this industry. Tony, initially people confused themselves, comparing an IoT and business intelligence. Business intelligence came a little before where IoT came into the picture. How often do you see this question coming up and then, addressing the question in a manner that IoT is better or BI is better for your business?
Yeah, man, I think, so I think BI tools are very important. And actually, by the way, we integrate in with those. So they, I think, give a very visual ability to see your certain aspects of your business more effectively. But the problem is a lot of that information, first of all, is historical. It does, even when it's pulling together different departments information, the one thing it doesn't do though is it doesn't solve the problems. One of the things that IoT and AI should be doing is actually giving you solutions to the problems that you're facing by not only bringing together all of the data into a single platform, but giving you the patterns and machine learning to be able to then get ahead, if you will, of the problem. BI was a very important tool to utilize and still is in many ways, again, from a visual perspective, but it's not solving the problem we see. It's not giving you the analysis. The analysis is still left on the person to do, and it's still reactive. It's not real time. With IoT and AI, you're actually able to stop a production environment if you're about to go out of tolerance and start to waste very valuable materials. You're able to avoid a machine breaking down because you're actually measuring, let's say, temperature, vibration, and other components that have been shown to be associated with past breakdowns. These are things that you cannot do with BI, and so it's a false, I think, understanding to think that you can that you kind of already can do all of this with a BI tool. But I definitely want to open it up to any, any questions from the audience, should you have them, Robert, or excuse me, Richard, or anybody else that you may have questions or comments even.
Okay, Tony, on that front, there's just, when we talk about IoT, it looks very futuristic. It sounds very futuristic. So I myself have experienced with my customer that, when will I get an ROI? It's pretty distant. So from the implementation perspective, on a business implementation perspective, I know you covered parts wherein one should approach it modularly. Is it because there is a tendency to fail in a project, because in an ERP sort of a project we do realize that, or it's just a stepping stone to improve further implementation?
I think that yes, sorry. So no, I think that the modular approach is important because the reality, first of all, is that every business is really inundated with their day-to-day operations. And so by, first of all, doing a modular approach, you can stay super focused and not overwhelm the internal team that needs to come together to implement that. Secondarily, I think what's really important is you get an ROI. You get to see immediate impacts, and you can both channel the revenue from those impacts, whether that be cost savings, whether that be revenue. It's not just cost, sometimes it's revenue that you can generate. You can reinvest that back into the next project as well. And to your point, as you do these modular implementations, you're giving yourself the chance to continue to dial in your roadmap little by little and adjust it and say, you know what, as we roll out this next section or this next component of IoT or AI, let's do it this way to keep expanding, or we realize now this has come up, let's integrate that in. When you do it modularly, you give yourself a chance to do that, just like you do with sprints in programming, in software and stuff like that. It's that you make yourself a more agile, I think, operation and company that adjusts more effectively to customer needs and internal needs.
Great. Okay. So, Richard, you were saying something because I thought you were speaking and you're on mute. Is there any question that you might have?
No,
Okay.
I think I'm good with what you're doing. I'm just trying to learn more about the industry and what you guys are doing. I think that covered it.
Are you from manufacturing, Richard, or from another vertical?
No, Tony, we talked a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Frontier.
Okay. Okay. Chris, one of the aspects, I know that you've been working across geography on IoT implementations and across verticals as well. One of the key aspects that you usually find in an industry like medical device manufacturing, while they implement a technology such as IoT, is the regulatory aspect. So how do you think from an implementation purposes, do you think the platform as this should be able to address that, or it is just dependent on the process of implementation, obviously?
So that's a very valid point, Kishan. So I'll begin with, I'll answer that in two parts. I'll address your question in the second part. When we talk about industry verticals and how people are leveraging, IoT even within medical industry, as well as like be it telecom industry or be it any industry, they start off with very humble aspect. If they are not manufacturers, they start with humble aspects like asset tracking or asset management using IoT, wherein they want to track their overall assets across their premises, across their geographies, within multiple regions and locations, and manage them remotely. And they get access to that. Many of the countries and the implementations what we had, people are using IoT in the most innovative way possible, wherein a simple, using a RTLS, ultra wideband, using that they are able to track and tag individual assets, using which they track and even monitor thefts and movement of these assets, and track and tamper sort of a mechanism using IoT sense. So GSM is playing a very important role in all of this, wherein initially it was that, IoT, like I earlier said, initially it was a aspect of prejudice, what you can say it as, that unless and until you do not have a sensor, you cannot use IoT. But things have changed. If as long as you have a communication way open, you can connect it with IoT and perform whatever business actions and business logic as you deem necessary fit. Now, to answer your question from a standpoint of medical equipment manufacturers, in this particular case, it depends completely on the process, whereas not necessarily always we need to rely on these connectivity on the hardware itself, while the software itself can connect to a middleware system from wherein it can extract all this information. So again, from an implementation standpoint, it depends from a regulation. The software itself, if you can think about it, is a enterprise grade software. So it addresses all your GDPR compliance, POPI compliance, etc. But at the same time, when you talk about on-premise regulatory compliance, we need to address them on a case-to-case basis.
Okay. So ideally, there should be a starting point to it, and you can address it, taking it there on. So yeah, it's good that you brought up GDPR, data compliance regulations. I want to ask you from a different aspect. These days what has happened is there's a debatable topic when it comes to an IoT project. It is about convenience versus security, if I must say. In an emerging tech like IoT or cloud computing per se. How do you think IoT as a technology is going to handle the security aspect to it?
That's a very valid point. So overall, from an edge computing perspective, wherein IoT scales up everything, all the encryption happens at the edge level. And plus, whenever you are broadcasting data, either it is an on-premise solution on an intranet, or it is a cloud solution over the internet. In either of the cases, the entire tunnel of data stream that you send across is completely encrypted. And not only that, the data that we capture any which ways from IoT devices are binary data. So, and post that, when we convert a binary data already into an AES sort of an encryption, it's like of almost no use for anybody to even hack it. So from a security standpoint, it can be done at a hardware level at the edge, and even at a tunnel level when it is communicating between the intranet servers or the internet facing servers.
Okay. That's that was very well elaborated in that aspect. Now I know we have audience from different geographies as well. Currently, we have people from South Africa, from Costa Rica, States, India. Uh, what I want to ask you is, before wrapping up, a final question here is: your projects have been implemented across geography. Do you see a specific area that all, if industry specific like a manufacturing for example, or technology specific within AI and IoT space, there are certain overlappings in terms of output? So when I say that, it's usually something like a manufacturer wants to focus on real-time OE, but does not necessarily understand the power if we go to the next level in terms of an AI, leverage AI as a technology. There's a roadblock in between. How do you usually address that?
So again, I'll like to answer this in two parts of your question. So the most important for our customers, be it any vertical, is the losses they incur. So if it is manufacturing, the losses could be in the bad quality or in reduced quality in any of the case. In some other cases, it could be theft. In other cases, it could be other revenue losses or time losses. So all these losses overall affect the ROI and revenue leakages. So ultimately, any business wants to run on an ROI basis, wherein they need to see value against any software or anywhere they put a cost to. So all our customers across geographies, be it India, Costa Rica, US, South Africa, or any other geography in the world, everyone is looking to improve their current processes, have a visibility on a real-time basis, and they do not want to do this on a historical basis. They want this information at a real time and broadcasted to multiple departments. Hence, the overall Pareto analysis can be done and identify the root cause and thereby reducing the cost. So that is, from the cost reduction perspective has been the most important aspect in any of the geographies. Overall, from a perspective of implementation, I've not seen a lot of difference in terms of ask from our customers, even if it is vertical specific or vertical agnostic. The overall IoT helps from data capturing on a real-time basis and providing help and helping the customers in terms of real-time business taking business decisions.
Okay. Okay. I think any other questions from the audience for now? Mbali, Christian, or Richard, maybe?
If not,
No questions.
Keishan, if there's no questions, I wanted just to remind everyone that we're more than happy as experts in this field to take you through a qualification process, understand more about what you're trying to accomplish and give you some options to look at. If nothing else, I think that'd be a really powerful reason to engage Winjit. Okay.
Perfect. Tony and Chris, thank you so much for being part of this webinar. We hope to, connect with you again on a separate forum and, have deep dive into a particular topic later on in this series. Thank you for being there and thank you for your thought leadership again.